Jobs, freedom, and security. Let's start with jobs. I want to take a minute and speak to all the single moms who are here, who are working 2 and 3 part-time jobs, who've seen your hours forcibly reduced to 28, 29 hours a week because Obamacare kicks in at 30 hours a week. I want to talk to all the truck drivers, all the mechanics and the plumbers, the machinists, the union members, the men and women with calluses on your hands. You've been seeing wages stagnate year after year after year. Cost of living keeps going up, but somehow your paycheck doesn't seem to keep pace. I want to talk to all the young people. Coming out of school, you got student loans up to your eyeballs. And you're scared. What does the future hold for me? Can I find a job? And you know, the media tries to tell us this is the new normal. This is as good as it gets. We're going to. You know, it's easy to talk about making America great again. You can even print that on a baseball cap. But you're right, they are made in China. But the real question is, do you understand the principles and values that made America great in the first place? The heart of our economy is not Washington, D.C. The heart of our economy is small businesses all across the United States of America. And if you want to unleash the economy, then you lift the boot of the federal government off the back of the necks of small businesses. If I'm elected president, we will repeal every word of Obamacare. Obamacare is the biggest job killer in America, and in its place, we're going to pass common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. Tomorrow is tax day. But we are going to pass a simple flat tax. $10% where every American can fill out our taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. We're going to rein in the EPA. And the federal regulators who have descended like locusts on farmers and ranchers and small businesses, killing jobs all across this country. You know, a few years back, I was out in West Texas. And I asked folks there, I said, what's the difference between regulators and locusts? I said, well, the thing is, you can't use pesticide on the regulators. And this old West Texas farmer, he leaned back, said, want to bet? And we are going to stop amnesty. and secure the borders and end sanctuary cities and end welfare benefits for those here illegally. And let me tell you what the effect of all of that's going to be. We're going to see millions and millions of new high-paying jobs coming back to America. We're going to see jobs coming back from Mexico, back from China. We're going to see manufacturing jobs coming back to Pennsylvania, the backbone of the middle class. We're going to see wages rising for Americans all across this country. And for young people, you're going to come out of school filled with hope, filled with dreams, and with 2, 3, 4, 5 job offers. We'll see mourning in America. The second critical issue in this election is freedom. You know, just a few weeks ago, the passing of Justice Scalia underscored for so many of us that it is not one, but 2 branches of government that hang in the balance. We are one liberal justice away from a radical 5-justice left-wing majority, the likes of which this country has never seen. We are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court stripping religious liberty from millions of Americans across this country. We are one liberal justice away from the court effectively erasing the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights. We are one liberal justice away from the court making us subject to the authority of the World Court and the United Nations and international law and giving away U.S. sovereignty. Now, you know, a couple of debates ago, all of us were asked a question about the Supreme Court and religious liberty. And Donald Trump turned to me and he said, "Ted, I've known a lot more politicians than you have." Well, in that, he is clearly correct. Donald Trump has been supporting liberal Democratic politicians for 40 years. I have no experience with that. But, you know, Donald continued. He said, "Ted, when it comes to the Supreme Court, when it comes to religious liberty, you got to learn to compromise." He said, "You got to learn to cut deals with the Democrats and go along to get along." Well, let me be very, very clear to the men and women of Pennsylvania. I will not compromise away your religious liberty. And I will not compromise away your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. The third critical issue in this election is security. For 7 years, we've seen a president who abandons and alienates our friends and allies and who shows weakness and appeasement to our enemies. Again, 2 debates ago, Donald Trump explained to all of us that if he were president, he said he would be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. Well, let me be very clear. As president, I will not be neutral. America will stand unapologetically with the nation of Israel. And you know, if you can't tell the difference between our friends and our enemies, if you can't tell the difference between Israel and Islamic terrorists who want to murder us. That raises real questions about your fitness and judgment to be commander-in-chief. During the last 7 years, we've seen our military undermined. We've seen readiness weakened. We've seen morale of the troops plummeting. And you know, as a nation, we've seen this before. We've seen another left-wing Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, weaken and undermine the military. And then in January 1981, Ronald Reagan came into office. And what did Reagan do? Reagan cut taxes. He pulled back regulations. We saw small businesses exploding, millions of new high-paying jobs. It generated trillions in new revenue for the government. He used that revenue to rebuild our military, and we bankrupted the Soviet Union and won the Cold War. I intend to do the exact same thing with radical Islamic terrorism. We're going to repeal Obamacare, pass a flat tax, rein in the EPA, stop amnesty, and we're going to see millions and millions of new high-paying jobs, wages going up for everyone, manufacturing jobs coming back to America. That'll generate trillions in new revenue for the government, and we will use that revenue to rebuild our military so it remains the mightiest fighting force on the face of the planet. No longer will the military be governed by political correctness. We will have a commander-in-chief who stands up and says to the world, we will defeat radical Islamic terrorism. We'll have a president willing to utter the words, radical Islamic terrorism. And you know, one of the saddest things we've seen over the last 7 years has been this president sending our fighting men and women into combat with rules of engagement so strict that their arms are tied behind their back, that they cannot fight, they cannot win, they cannot defend themselves. Well, let me tell you, that is wrong. It is immoral, and mark my words, in January 2017, it will end. America has always been reluctant to use military force. We are slow to anger. We believe in peace through strength. But if and when military force is necessary, we should use overwhelming force, kill the enemy, and then get the heck out. On the first day in office, I'm going to instruct the Department of Education that Common Core ends today. I trust the men and women of Pennsylvania much better to know what is good for your kids, parents and teachers, rather than bureaucrats down in Washington. So let's talk a little politics. This race has been an interesting race. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. The ride was awesome. I rode the Ravine Flyer. Let me tell you, coming up at the top, looking out over the lake, wow, that is breathtaking. And I feel really glad. My travel aide, I thought he was going to scream like a girl, and he didn't. So that, it was good because we had an iPhone filming it, and if he had squealed, we really would have put that on every screensaver in the whole campaign. But, you know, we started a year ago with 17 candidates. An amazingly diverse, young, talented, dynamic field. What a contrast with the Democrats. You know, the Democratic field consists of a wild-eyed socialist with ideas that are dangerous for America and the world, and Bernie Sanders. But, you know, the course of the campaign, the primary did what it's supposed to do. It narrowed the field. That's what a primary should do. As we stand here today, there are two and only two people with any plausible path to winning the Republican nomination. Me and Donald Trump. And an interesting thing has happened in the last 3 weeks. Something the media has been really reluctant to report on. We've had a total of 11 elections in 4 different states. In 11 elections, we have beaten Donald Trump in all 11. It started in the state of Utah, where we won a landslide election with 69% of the vote and every one of their delegates. Then it went to the state of North Dakota, where their convention elected their delegates. Of the declared delegates, 18 are with us, 1 is with Donald Trump. Now, 18 to 1, I'll take that ratio any day of the week. And then we went on to Wisconsin. Now, you'll remember Wisconsin, the media said over and over again, Cruz can't win in Wisconsin. They said Wisconsin is a perfect state for Donald Trump. It's an upper Midwest state. It's an industrial state. It's not Hollywood. That's true. That's pretty good. And I'll tell you, you look at the state of Wisconsin, the men and women there share an awful lot in common with the men and women of western Pennsylvania. And the media said over and over again, this is Donald Trump's sweet spot. In fact, the day before the election, Donald Trump in Wisconsin announced that he was going to have a, quote, big victory in Wisconsin. Then the people voted, and we won yet another landslide with 48% of the vote. We beat Donald Trump by 13 points in the state of Wisconsin. And then Colorado. The past week in Colorado, there were a total of 8 elections. 7 in each of the 7 congressional districts, and then 1 statewide at their convention. A total of 65,000 people collectively voted in Colorado. They elected 34 delegates. Of those 34, we won 34. You may have noticed Donald is very unhappy about this. He has been yelling and screaming and stomping his foot, and an awful lot of whining. And the simple reality is, anytime the people vote against Donald, he screams the voters are stealing the election. Well, that's actually how elections work. The voters choose who our next president will be. And what we're seeing happening nationally is the 65 to 70% of Republicans who recognize that Donald Trump is not the best candidate to go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton. That if we nominate Donald, Hillary wins, and she wins by double digits. Poll after poll after poll shows Donald losing anywhere by 11 points to 18 points. You want to know how bad it is? A few weeks ago in the state of Utah, a general election poll showed Hillary Clinton beating Donald Trump in Utah. Now, Utah is the brightest red, most conservative state in the country. If the Republican can't carry Utah, we are looking at a Walter Mondale-level bloodbath nationwide. That means we lose the Senate, we may lose the House, we lose the Supreme Court for a generation. Hillary Clinton as president buries us in trillions of debt and keeps the same economic stagnation that the people of Erie are suffering under right now. You know, it's interesting. Hillary's looking to move into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I've actually got different government housing in mind for her. But what we are seeing is those 65 to 70% of Republicans are uniting behind this campaign, are coming together. You know, of the 17 Republican candidates who started this race, 5 are supporting our campaign. Rick Perry and Lindsey Graham and Jeb Bush and Scott Walker and Carly Fiorina. And when you toss in Mike Lee and Mark Levin, and Glenn Beck, you are looking at the full spectrum, the full ideological spectrum of the Republican Party all coming together and unifying behind this campaign. Now, on Saturday, the state of Wyoming will vote. And I believe on Saturday it is likely that we will have had a 12th victory over Donald Trump. Then we've got New York voting. Now, New York is a close neighbor. There may be some New Yorkers here. Now, listen, Donald is looking pretty strong in New York. It's his home state. You would expect him to do well in his home state. And if Donald doesn't get north of 50% in his home state, I think that's widely going to be seen as a crushing loss for him. But I'll tell you this, we are competing and competing hard in New York. We are working to earn the votes, to pick up delegates, to campaign in New York, and to continue the momentum we've got nationwide. And then after New York comes the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we are neck and neck in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a battleground. Pennsylvania is a state that the country is looking to. And Pennsylvania, let me tell you, not only do I hope that we prevail here in Pennsylvania, but I give you my word as the nominee. In the general election, I'm going to be back in Pennsylvania a lot, and we are going to do everything possible to win Pennsylvania in the general election. And it's up to the men and women here. It is the men and women here who are on the front lines. I want to ask every one of you, when Election Day arrives, to come out and vote for me 10 times. Now, look, we're not. Amen. But if every one of you gets 9 other people to show up and vote, you will have voted 10 times. You know, maybe it's the case that you're not old enough to vote. You know, if you get 10 other people to show up and vote, you will have voted 10 times before you turn 18. Happy birthday. That's how we win. This is a campaign, the strength of the campaign, it is the grassroots. It is the men and women in this room. It is the men and women across this state. It is the men and women across this country who are unifying. If we continue to unite, to stand with one voice, we will win this nomination. We will win the general election. We will beat Hillary Clinton, and we will turn this country around. It took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan. And I am convinced the most long-lasting legacy of Barack Obama is going to be a new generation of leaders in the Republican Party who stand and fight for liberty, who stand and fight for the Constitution, and who stand and fight for the Judeo-Christian values that built this great nation. Thank you, and God bless you.